I was at a couple different parent forums, whether it be PTO, CPAC, and some parents asked if we could have this kind of session to discuss some of the opportunities for our older students as we're getting ready for the 2022-2023 school year. So I was more than willing to host this. And I just want to give the parents all the information as possible. We do have some changes that are going to be going on next year with some of our music and electives. So I just wanted to inform you as well about it. So let's give everybody one more minute and then we'll get started.
Okay.
All right. We will go ahead and get started right now. And let's go ahead and I'm going to actually start with information that's specific for our current fourth grade students, because that's all the information you really need at this time is to talk about the music classes. And then after I'm done with that, if you have a fourth grader only, then you can go ahead and leave if you'd like, or you can stick around to hear about some of the options that your child will have later. I did go into fourth grade classes. Oh, and I'm so sorry. I just remembered Mrs. Elisa, one of our wonderful SAC parents. She will be here to translate as well. So Mrs. Elisa, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Buenas tardes a todos. Mrs. Lickey va a dar la presentación de hoy. Informó que si solamente tienen hijos de cuarto grado, va a repasar esa información primero para que si se tienen que ir, pueden irse después o pueden quedarse durante todo el tiempo. So va a empezar a hablar acerca de lo que tienen que saber los que tienen hijos actualmente en cuarto grado. Significa que el próximo año escolar van a estar en quinto grado.
Thank you, Mrs. Elisa. So we are very excited to continue two of our music programs here at SAC. The first one that we've had since the beginning is band. So that is a class where your student, and you know what, I'm going to share my screen. I will be giving this out to students as they make their selections for music. It's got some other information on here, but this is more for middle school. But Mrs. Vallejos has 3 bands. Grizzly is the highest, Polar is the intermediate level, and then incoming 5th graders for next year, so our current 4th graders, they'll be in a beginning band program. So this is where they play different musical instruments. And then the second, Mrs. Elisa, I'll stop right after this. The second class that is continuing at SAC for music is our guitar program with Mr. Vasquez. And as incoming 5th graders, they will learn the basics and fundamentals of how to play guitar. All right, Mrs. Elisa.
Okay. So dice que está muy entusiasmada porque 2 de los programas de música que van a continuar el próximo año escolar es banda y guitarra. Y banda está compartido entre tres diferentes grupos. Es el principiante, intermedio y el avanzado. El avanzado es el Grizzly Band. Y en guitarra también está dividido por intermedio, avanzado y principiante. Si tiene niños que van a estar en quinto grado, van a aprender las cosas básicas de una guitarra y la información básica de música.
Thank you. And then we are bringing back next year choir. In fact, Mr. Garcia announced at our last CPAC meeting that we are currently in the process of hiring a full-time choir teacher. And so we are excited to bring back our choir program, and that will be the third option for music for all students.
Y la tercera opción va a ser coro. Está muy contenta porque van a regresar con coro. Mr. García en la última junta anunció que ahorita están en el proceso de tener un nuevo maestro o maestra que va a estar dando coro.
All right, so I spoke to all fourth graders last week and I gave them the basics of their choices. I'll be going back into their classroom tomorrow in the afternoon to go over it one more time. And then they will fill out a form where they state their most interested music class, second interested, and their least interested. I do my best to give every student the music class that they want, but we also need to make sure that the classes are balanced in size. So it's worked out pretty good in years past. We do recommend, and this is some, oh, Mrs. Vallejos is just coming in, awesome, our band teacher. We do highly recommend, and I know Mrs. Vallejos will like hearing this, we do highly recommend that a student stays with the music class that they choose beginning in 5th grade, because that will allow them to advance their skills this time here at Singer Academy. Okay,
yes. Dijo a Mrs. Lickey que la semana pasada ella ya habló con los estudiantes que están en cuarto grado y les explicó lo básico de las opciones que van a tener para música. Ella va a regresar mañana para repasarlo nuevamente y darles más detalles. Ellos van a tener que llenar una forma en línea donde van a decir su preferencia, intermedio o la menos preferencias, o van a ponerlos en mi favorito, segundo y tercero. Ella dice que va a hacer todo lo posible por tratar de acomodar para que se ponga lo mejor, pero tienen que asegurarse que las clases sean balanceadas de cantidad de estudiantes en cada clase. Y dice que sí se recomienda que si el estudiante empieza en quinto grado con lo que selecciona, que continúes. Así eso va a ayudarles a que avancen.
Mrs. Vallejos, I'm just quickly talking to the 4th grade parents only first, and then I'm going to be going into a little bit more detail for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade parents for next year. Is there anything you wanted to add about the 3 music classes beginning in 5th grade?
Yeah, if they had any questions about how to choose which classes, they can always email me, which is totally fine, or even Mr. Vasquez if they had questions about guitar, and I'd be happy to answer any questions about choir as well. And I think we're gonna want to try to make it even as possible for all 3 groups, because I know a lot of students like to choose one, and then all of a sudden we have like 50 in one of the classes. So we're gonna do our best as music teachers to try to divvy that up between all 3 selections.
Right. A big thing I stress too.
Can I translate?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Le preguntó Mrs. Lickey a Ms. Vallejos, no sé si la conocen, es la maestra de banda, que si hay algo que quiere agregar, y ella dice que si tienen alguna pregunta le pueden mandar un correo electrónico a ella o a Mr. Vázquez de guitarra. También le pueden mandar un correo electrónico si tienen preguntas de coro. Dicen que van a hacer todo lo posible para que las clases sean balanceadas, porque no pueden tener 50 estudiantes que todos escojan uno de los instrumentos o la guitarra o el coro. So van a tratar lo más posible de serlas balanceados, pero si tienen alguna pregunta, que ella está disponible, Mr. Vázquez está disponible por contestarle sus preguntas.
The one last thing I'll say then for 4th grade is I did tell the students that in the form that they fill out, I did ask for them to give any reasoning why they really wanted a particular class. I know some of our current fourth graders are already starting guitar lessons privately, or they may go to Sam Academy here in town, have started guitar there before they've started at our school. I would hate to put somebody in a different class if they've already had training, or if they've worked with their older brother or sister on a specific instrument. If there's a legacy there with a certain music at our school, I want the students to give me their reasoning if they have a great reason for being in a certain class.
Algo que agregó es que además de cuando escogen qué quieren tomar en cuestión de música, le está preguntando qué es la razón que escogen eso. Si, por ejemplo, un estudiante dice, yo ya estoy tomando clases en la academia de Sam y estoy ya practicando guitarra, eso va a tratar de acomodar a que agarre guitarra. Si, por ejemplo, un hermano mayor le está ayudando en banda o en un instrumento, ahí pueden poner la razón que ya están familiarizados con ese instrumento y por eso es importante saber cuál es la razón que ellos van a escoger el tipo de música que van a escoger.
The thing is that
All right, is there any questions from any parent from
because that's like you
current
make
fourth
your
grade?
bets on it. You like, you want me to buy you one? I'm not going to buy you a new one.
I think somebody is unmute.
Yeah,
Alguien
I'm
está.
trying to find them.
Por el momento, si alguno de ustedes tiene una pregunta, los que tienen hijos actualmente en cuarto grado, ¿alguien tiene alguna pregunta acerca de lo que ha hablado Mrs. Lickey?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, so let's say if they join band, I'm talking from a current fourth grader going into fifth. If they go into band, are they gonna pick instruments they wanna play, or how does that work?
Ooh, that's a great question. Mrs. Vallejos, are you still here?
I am here, yes. And that's a very good question. One of the things I like to do with the band students in general is I like to show them all of the instruments, and then they give me their top 3, and then I test them on their instruments to see how fast they're able to pick up a certain instrument or make a sound. And then I'll just go also based off of recommendations of what I think might be best. So if a student is wanting to play trombone, but their arm is really short, I may give them a different instrument that they would be successful at. But I usually like to try them on their first choice and then go from there.
Thank you.
I had a question.
Can I translate that one? Because that's a really good question in case some of the parents didn't have it. Una de las mamás preguntó, por ejemplo, si escogen banda, cómo va la maestra a determinar qué instrumento de banda va a poder usar. Y ella dice que usa una variedad de discreción acerca de eso. Trata de que los estudiantes escojan les van primero a enseñarle todos los instrumentos para que los estudiantes puedan verlos todos. Y luego ellos van a escoger sus primeros 3 preferencia y va a dejar que toquen esos instrumentos para ver si tienen facilidad más con uno o no con el otro. Por ejemplo, si tocan un instrumento que necesitan los brazos que estén muy grandes y no va a ser fácil para ellos. Usa diferentes criterios, pero trata de asegurarse de que el estudiante tenga su preferido, uno de sus 3 preferidos instrumentos.
Was there another question about music?
I had a question about the instruments, like specific instruments.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So I was just going to ask, are there certain instruments that are considered like, I guess like if you know, the child ends up sticking with it for a while, are there certain instruments that are like scholarship instruments that they can?
Love that question. That is like, yes, absolutely. We do have what we call scholarship instruments. Primarily, they're the ones that, like say French horn or bass clarinet or tuba. A lot of the instruments that we look at that are considered scholarship instruments are the ones that are most needed, like say at the high school to college level. Like I went to I went to Fresno State on a scholarship because I played bass clarinet, but my primary was clarinet. So there are ways to get them started on something basic in the 5th grade. And then when they move to 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, that's where I can start challenging them on secondary instruments. I can definitely show the students what those will be if they have interest in wanting to move up to that instrument when they get into 6th and 7th grade. In fact, I have a beginning student on the Barry saxophone, and he started on that, and that right there is also a scholarship instrument. So if they are interested in wanting to see those, absolutely, I can start them on that.
Thank you. I didn't even know that. So I'm learning something today too.
La señora Mónica hizo una buenísima pregunta. Preguntó que si, por ejemplo, los instrumentos, si hay como una beca para los estudiantes que quieran usar un instrumento que sea más caro. Y ella dijo que le encanta esa pregunta porque sí, les va a dar la oportunidad de tener eso ya cuando tengan más experiencia, pero los puede introducir a eso. Por ejemplo, mencionó algunos de los instrumentos como tuba u otros que están más caros. Y esos usualmente se usan ya en la high school, en la preparatoria o en la universidad. Y dio el ejemplo Mrs. Vallejo que ella tuvo una beca y pudo hacer el instrumento para la universidad porque estaba más caro. So, ella va a poder hablar acerca de eso con los estudiantes también.
All right. Any other music questions so that we can move on to our projects classes for 6th, 7th, and next year's 6th, 7th, and 8th graders?
¿Alguna otra pregunta acerca de música antes de continuar con algunas clases electivas o cuando estén en 6º, 7, 8 que van a tener las opciones?
Could I just mention about mariachi, or is that your...
Yeah, if you want to quickly just give that quick little plug for mariachi.
Yeah, I know some students this year had asked, they were younger. I think we started in 6th grade, but we're thinking, Mr. Vasquez and I were thinking of maybe opening it up to vocalists for 5th grade, and that's just anyone who, whether they're in guitar, band, or choir. We're wanting to kind of like bump up our mariachi group, so keep an eye out for next year when we start talking about clubs. We were just at a conference this last week, and we are excited to revise what we have been doing. But we want to open it up definitely to 6th through 8th, and we're thinking about maybe pushing it down to 5th grade.
Rápidamente quiere hablar ella acerca de mariachi. Antes se abría solamente para los estudiantes de 6 al 8. Dice que el próximo año van a agregar estudiantes de 5º grado en coro, cantar. Dice que no tienes que tener experiencia ni con aunque tengas otro instrumento, y va a empezarlo el próximo año escolar. Es como un club. Ella y Mr. Vázquez fueron a una conferencia donde han aprendido muchísimo y van a revisar lo que estaban haciendo antes y actualizarlo, y están muy contentos, y ojalá que algunos de ustedes hablen con sus hijos acerca del club de mariachi.
And one more is that anyone can join. Absolutely anyone, like experience or no experience on the instruments, they can all join.
Y dijo que toda la persona, niño que esté interesado en participar puede hacerlo, tenga o no tenga experiencia con instrumentos o con cantar.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Vallejos. Okay, I think we are ready to move on now. So our current 4th grade parents, you're more than welcome to stay and listen to what your child will be fortunate to be involved in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. But if you'd like to move on now, you can. So something that we very much pride ourselves in here at Singer Academy is that...
Let me just
yeah.
translate that.
Sorry, yes.
Dice que ya terminaron con los papás que tienen hijos en 4º grado actualmente. Ya lo que va a repasar es para los niños de 6, 7 y 8, 6, 7, que van a empezar el 8 también. Y pueden quedarse a escuchar lo demás, pero si no pueden quedarse, se pueden ir en este momento.
Okay, so in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, your children will work on one specific research-based project a year. And the two types of projects are History Day and Science Fair. And if we go ahead and let Miss Elisa just do that quick intro, and then I'll go into History Day specifically and then Science Fair.
Los estudiantes que van a estar en el, did you say 6th, 7th, and 8th or just 7th and 8th?
6th, 7th, and 8th.
Okay. Los papás que van a tener hijos en el 6, 7 y 8, el próximo año escolar van a escoger dos tipos, pueden escoger uno de dos tipos de proyectos. Uno es historia, Día de Historia, que es nacional, y otro es Feria de Ciencias.
Perfect. So for History Day, these projects, every student, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, as I said, they will work on it for the entirety pretty much of the first trimester. Mrs. Santos, did you have a question? Okay, I'll go on. They work on it for pretty much the whole first trimester. It's usually due at the beginning of the second trimester, but our students who do extremely well and put in that extra time and effort, their projects can last them throughout almost the entire year because they will go on to either districts or county or even state. We've had so many students compete at the state level. So it can be a whole year's project, same project, they just continuously improve it. Or if your student is doing it, just to get their grade in, they can be done by early November.
El Día de Historia empieza el 6, 7 y el 8. Dice que usualmente toma el primer trimestre y lo tienen que entregar al final del primer o al principio del segundo trimestre. Pero dependiendo del estudiante pueden competir con el distrito, luego con el condado y luego ir con el estado. Ese proyecto puede durar todo el año escolar y es el mismo proyecto, pero lo tratan de mejorar y mejorar en cada paso. Y han tenido muchos estudiantes de Sanger Academy tener esas oportunidades de ir al condado estatal.
And the same is true also for Science Fair in that it could be just, the first third of the year, but as students progress, it can go up for the whole year to compete at state as well.
Lo mismo es para la Feria de Ciencias, es igual que Historia, donde lo entregan al principio del segundo trimestre, pero si compiten y siguen subiendo, puede durarle todo el año escolar.
So now just focusing on History Day, students in 5th grade this year did get their first taste, I guess, of History Day because they competed in the poster presentation part. But starting in 6th grade, they have a choice of doing a historical paper, an exhibit, a documentary, a website, a performance. And I know our middle school this year also was given an option of creating a podcast, which will present what they've learned in their research according to the theme. Every year, the History Day theme is changing. And next year, the theme is Frontiers in History. So there's just a little bit there for Mrs. Elisa to translate.
Yeah, and some of these technical words may be
I
hard.
know.
Discúlpeme, padre, si no traduzco lo mejor. Voy a hacer lo mejor posible porque unas palabras son muy técnicas para mí. Estaba hablando del el Día de Historia. Tienen que entregar un papel, le llaman un papel de proceso, un trabajo de proceso, y lo pueden hacer en diferentes tipos de temas. Por ejemplo, pueden hacer un documentario, pueden hacer como una exposición, un documento histórico, pueden hacer como una obra de teatro o algo nuevo que se llama podcast, que es como lo que hacen en radio, donde personas hacen entrevistas. Eso es algo nuevo que se está haciendo. I'm not sure if I missed anything else.
No, that was good. Sorry, I sent a chat.
Oh,
message.
I forgot one thing. Cada año tienen un diferente tema. El tema del próximo año es fronteras. Eso es lo que si escogen historia. Si tienen hijos de 5º grado, ellos ya tuvieron una probadita de hacer día de historia porque hicieron como un cartelón, un póster, y ellos solamente tenían esa opción, pero si escogen día de historia, ellos pueden expander y de escoger diferentes opciones.
Thank you. Do we have any specific questions about History Day before I move on to Science Fair, which I'm much more comfortable talking about?
¿Alguien tiene alguna pregunta acerca de Día de Historia antes de repasar Feria de Ciencias?
All right, we will move on to Science Fair. So I will say that, of course, Science Fair is near and dear to my heart. I worked with so many Science Fair students in my almost 20-year career now. So I can say a lot more about Science Fair, but I won't go into all the details. But I will let our incoming 6th grade parents know that although Mr. Nelson will not be here next year, I plan on working with our new 6th grade teacher, to Ms. Vasquez, to make sure that we are providing our students with the quality Science Fair instruction that we had with Mr. Nelson as well. If Mr. Nelson was here, I'd say the same thing. I trained Mr. Nelson's on Science Fair, so I can do it with Ms. Vasquez as well. And I did tell the students too that I don't want them to feel like, oh, I'm gonna just choose History Day because it's a new teacher for Science Fair. I will very much be there to support your children and the teacher as well in that project. That was a lot. Sorry, Miss Elisa.
I will try my best. Dice que la Feria de Ciencias es algo muy cercano a ella, a su corazón, porque tiene más experiencia haciendo eso. Dice que tiene más de 20 años trabajando con estudiantes en este aspecto. Ella entrenó a Mr. Nelson, que es el maestro de 6º grado, que se va a ir y van a tener una nueva maestra, Ms. Vázquez, parece. Y dice que ella va a estar trabajando muy cercanamente con ella para asegurarse que la apoye, para que los estudiantes se sientan cómodos, que van a tener la calidad que se merecen en ese aspecto. No quiere que se pongan nerviosos y que digan los estudiantes, no, mejor voy a escoger día de historia porque no es una nueva maestra.
So with Science Fair, the big message I want to say there is that, so when a lot of people think, and I did tell the students, it's fine, you guys, sorry, my kids just walked in and they thought they had to hide. You can walk in. A lot of parents and students think that Science Fair is like kind of in the movies when somebody builds a volcano and people come and look at it. And although that's fantastic, that's not truly a Science Fair project. A Science Fair project is a project where a student designs an experiment to answer a question that something in nature or anything in science that they notice. So they work with their teacher to design a testable experiment to get results and then present what they've learned about the question that they asked.
El mensaje más importante que quiere recalcar en la Feria de Ciencias es que el proyecto no es como lo que ven en las películas donde hacen como un volcán que explota y todo eso, aunque eso puede ser. El proyecto es más basado en investigación. Tienen que desarrollar una pregunta y hacer una investigación acerca de eso y hacer un experimento. Tiene un proceso más metódico para hacer el proyecto.
And a lot of the kids, when I did talk to them about the experiments, of course, they're very excited. They do have to get their experiment approved by their teacher. They cannot test on anything with a backbone or without special permission. So, of course, we make the experiments appropriate for their grade level.
Y algo importante que tienen que saber es que el proyecto tiene que ser aprobado por su maestro. Tienen como un criterio que están utilizando y tienen que asegurarse que es apropiado para su edad y no peligroso.
And I do have a lot of contacts with professors at Fresno State and at different laboratories in the Fresno area. So if any student really wants to take their project to the next level and work with actual scientists and laboratories, that is something I can arrange as well.
Tiene muchos contactos con profesores de la universidad, universidad estatal, por ejemplo, que si quiere el estudiante llevar su proyecto al siguiente nivel, lo puede hacer con científicos que le pueden ayudar y darles consejos.
All right. The last thing I want to say about the two projects is, although all of the instruction for how to do each part for History Day and Science Fair, your students will be given all of that information in class here at school. They are expected to do some of their writing as homework as well. And the History Day and Science Fair teachers really lessen their amount of homework during these project times, because they know your students will be working on some of their writing as part of their homework.
Lo último que quiere mencionar acerca de estos dos proyectos es que mucho de este trabajo se hace en clase, no se tienen que preocupar acerca de eso, y la escritura usualmente se hace en la casa. Los maestros tratan de minimizar la cantidad de tarea que les da durante este tiempo, porque sabe que estos proyectos requieren mucho de su tiempo.
All right. Now, as they go on through 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, most students stay, if they choose History Day in 6th grade, most stay with that project for the next 2 years. I recommend that because it's the same process every year, the same steps that they'll do. It's just a different topic or a slightly different variation on their topic. It gets really difficult when kids bounce around from maybe 1 year do History Day, 1 year Science Fair, and then go back to History Day. I mean, they can do it. It's just, I really recommend once your child finds their project that they want to continue working with, they stay in that specific group.
Mrs. Lickey menciona que ella recomienda que el estudiante se continúe, por ejemplo, si empieza en 6º grado con historia, que continúe, porque son los mismos pasos que están siguiendo, aunque el proyecto se cambie, pero los estudiantes pueden cambiar si un año hacen ciencias y luego historia. No se recomienda nuevamente porque les ayuda a seguir los siguientes pasos y poder hacerlo así.
There was a great question in the chat. They want to know if there'll be a parent meeting held at the beginning of the year like last year. And yes, so the History Day teachers, that will be Mrs. Gates and Mrs. Krikorian, they will have a meeting just for their History Day parents at the beginning of the year, where they go over a lot more detail about what to expect. And then Miss Vasquez and Mr. Linares will have a science fair meeting for those parents. And yes, just to be clear, yes. They only choose one project. If we have any very veteran Singer Academy parents and or possibly even students at this age, I mean, they were students here at SAC way back a long time ago. Students did have to do History Day and Science Fair every year. Well, we have decided it's better to get high quality in one project than the quantity of both projects. So yes, only one project a year.
Una mamá preguntó una pregunta en el chat preguntando que si va a haber una junta de padres como usualmente se hacía al principio del año, y Mrs. Lickey dijo que sí. Los maestros de historia van a tener su junta ya cuando los estudiantes han escogido historia y van a repasar con mucho más detalle todo este proceso, y luego los de ciencia van a tener su propia junta. Y otra mamá preguntó, ¿se hacen los dos proyectos o solamente uno? Y Mrs. Lickey dijo que solamente se hace uno. En el pasado, los estudiantes tenían que hacer las dos cosas, el proyecto de ciencia y el proyecto de historia, pero ahora han decidido que es mejor subir la calidad de los proyectos a pedir demasiado de ellos.
I honestly don't know how Mr. Lesso and I used to do that, because that was even before one-to-one devices at our district. So we used to have to share a laptop card. Oh, I don't know how. I was a younger woman. I had more energy back then, I guess.
Está nomás mencionando no, su memoria de hace muchos años ella y Mr. Lesso no tenían las computadoras o la diferente tecnología que tienen ahora. Entonces dice que así era más difícil para ellos hacer eso.
Yes. Any other questions about History Day versus Science Fair?
¿Alguna pregunta acerca del proyecto de ciencias o de historia?
That is also another one. The last thing I guess I'll say about, I keep saying that, but then more things pop in my head. We try our best to give the students their first choice, History Day, Science Fair, but I also cannot put more than 32, 33 students in one class because the students will all work with their teacher at once throughout the week. So I cannot put 50 in History Day and then the other, 20 in Science Fair. So I do ask that students give me some grace in that manner. And then I will have students who say, you know what, Mrs. Lickey, and on the form, they'll say either one sounds fine. But please, 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 if you have I remember years back, a parent, they went to Pearl Harbor over the summer and the student was planning on doing her project on History Day about that. And she got a lot of information while she was there. And then when she came back, I had put her in Science Fair. So it was really difficult there. I was able to make that switch because she had all her research that she did when she was visiting Pearl Harbor. But please talk to your child about their project so they make their best selection as well.
La última cosa que quiero recalcar en este elemento es que trata de darle al estudiante la opción, trata de ponerlo en su primera opción. Pero lo único que no puede pasar es que no puede tener más de 32 o 33 estudiantes en una clase. Eso no puede decir que 50 estudiantes escojan historia y solamente 20 ciencias. Ella va a tratar, pero les pide a los estudiantes y a los padres que le den gracia para entender que no siempre van a poder tener su primera opción. Hay estudiantes que dicen, no me importa, me puedes poner en cualquiera de los dos. Y dio un ejemplo de un estudiante que con sus papás fueron a visitar Pearl Harbor, donde hicieron como investigación, mucho de la información que iba a usar para el día de historia, y ella, la maestra la había puesto en ciencias. La maestra pudo hacer unos cambios para poder acomodarla, pero es bien difícil siempre darles a los estudiantes su primera opción. Va a hacer todo lo posible.
A great question in the chat. Is the project to be done by individual students or in a group? For History Day, they can work in groups from 6th through 8th grade. That's totally possible. A lot of people do that. But in Science Fair, it's a little bit trickier. It is allowed, but the students, when they go on to the district and county level, they're a lot more strict on the regulations with the number of students we send in partners. So in the past, as a Science Fair teacher, I didn't really allow it unless the students made a strong proposal to me about why they wanted to work in groups and what they were specifically going to do, because the judges at the county level for Science Fair don't necessarily recommend the partner groups. So typically Science Fair is individual, but we can possibly allow for some groups, but typically Science Fair is one-on-one or individual, and History Day can be in groups.
Una mamá tuvo una pregunta en el chat. Preguntó que si el proyecto se tiene que hacer individual o puede ser en grupos. Y dice que en historia sí se permite en 6º al 8º grado, pero en ciencias se permite, pero no está recomendado, porque el condado se ha puesto más estricto de cuántos estudiantes pueden ir en grupo. Y ella lo permite. Y los estudiantes tienen que hacer una propuesta muy fuerte para explicar por qué lo pueden hacer, pero los jueces no lo recomiendan. No es algo que Mrs. Lickey trata de hablar con los estudiantes porque es más complicado cuando lo hacen en ciencia.
But I'm sure some of us parents know sometimes we think those group projects are going to make everything easier, but sometimes the management meeting up, you know, after hours, I always tell the kids, you make sure you're choosing your groups wisely if you're going to do group projects, because each member needs to be an equal member in that group.
Dice, como algunos de ustedes padres pueden estar de acuerdo con ella, que muchos piensan que tener un grupo es más fácil, pero puede ser más complicado en manejar los horarios, en que todos puedan trabajar juntos y que todos tengan un nivel de igualdad en el tipo de trabajo que están haciendo.
All right. I think unless we have any other questions, and like I said, at the beginning of the year, the teachers will give a lot more detail about the different projects.
Y va a mover al siguiente tópico. Nomás dice que recuerden que las maestras van a dar mucha más información al principio del año. Esta información se lo está dando ahorita porque ella va a estar hablando con los estudiantes y esta les puede dar una oportunidad para ustedes hablar con ellos acerca de esto.
Okay, so that's pretty much it for next year's 5th graders and next year's 6th graders, because next year's 6th graders are not going to be in the full, we call it the elective wheel as our 7th and 8th graders. We have not done that in a couple years now since return from pandemic. So these these elective classes besides art and music that I'm going to talk about now are only for next year's 7th and 8th graders.
Just to be clear,
Yes.
So the electives, music and art are not for 6th graders?
No, sorry. Those are, I'm talking about like these STEM and femineers and drama. Yeah, so
Okay.
all of next year's 6th graders and 5th graders will have art and music.
Okay. Los estudiantes que el próximo año van a estar en 5º y 6º tienen clases selectivas y ahorita las clases selectivas son menos de las opciones que tenían antes de la pandemia. Después de la pandemia ya no han tenido más selecciones. So, si tiene niños en 5º y 6º, los únicos clases selectivos que van a tener es música y arte. Y después va a hablar acerca de otros selectivos que es para niños de 7 y el 8.
Okay, so Mr. Garcia has really made it clear that, and I totally support this, that with the pathways, and for those of you who are not familiar with that, our 2 high schools now, Sanger High and Sanger West, are very strong in developing pathways for students to follow based on their possible career interests.
Mr. García recientemente ha sido claro acerca de cómo podemos apoyar a los estudiantes a tener lo que le llaman pathways, que es como un camino con diferentes opciones de carrera. Entonces, están trabajando en cómo preparar a los estudiantes. Ahora ustedes saben que tenemos 2 preparatorias, 2 high schools en el distrito que ofrecen ese tipo de caminos, pathways para sus diferentes carreras.
So I've been working with the coordinators of these programs at Sanger High and Sanger West, and I didn't want to put it all out there for our students because it's going to be a gradual transition to create these junior high pathways. But we are reformatting some of our electives to be more aligned so that when our students leave Sanger Academy and move on to Sanger High or Sanger West, they can already continue their specific area. So I don't know, I kind of repeated some of myself there, Mrs. Elisa, and I'm running out of time, so.
It's okay. So I'm going to charge you a shorter.
Okay.
Se están trabajando de alinear los diferentes clases electivos para que sea la transición a la preparatoria más fácil. Es lo que mencionó ahorita.
So the first 2 I really want to go over, and then the rest are similar to what we've already had. We have 2 new courses that are directly aligned with pathways at Sanger High and Sanger West. Project STEM is the new coding computer science class that students can take in high school. There's a junior high version, and we are currently in the process of getting our materials, which would include probably new laptops and new coding programs for our students. This is a quick little intro on Project STEM, but if you want more information, you can either email me or you can Google Project STEM. It actually is a program made from Google. And what I did learn is that there's possibilities for our students to have a field trip and visit some Google offices and see what these coders are doing in real life. So I thought that was pretty cool.
No va a mencionar mucho de los otros clases electivas porque son similares a lo que se había ofrecido antes. Va a recalcar el proyecto STEM y el que sigue, porque esos son completamente alineados con lo que se está ofreciendo en la high school. Y estos cursos le está dando como un resumen allí. Es como inteligencia artificial, pueden tomar paseos a Google y este programa se creó de parte de Google. Entonces ustedes pueden mandarles correos electrónicos a Mrs. Lickey para hacerle más preguntas más profundas. Es como ciencias de computadoras, la cosa de tecnología, pero ella va a dar nomás un resumen rapidito y pueden hacerle más preguntas o lo pueden buscar en la computadora.
And then our second new program is a program that actually Fairmont has already started, and it is at Sanger High. It's called the Femineers program, and it's done through Cal Poly Pomona, and they started it to encourage our ladies to be interested in engineering. Now, boys can join the Femineer class, although it is promoted at getting girls more interested in engineering. I did double check, boys can join. They are going to do, they're going to take a more creative approach to engineering. I've seen some of these Femineer showcase days that they do, and students are building like amusement park type engineering pieces with electronic pieces going on here and there. Hopefully next year it'll be back, but Femineer engineering students, they get to actually visit Cal Poly Pomona and present whatever engineering device that they create throughout the year and do a presentation in front of some professors and Cal Poly engineering students. So we're really looking forward to adding this. And like I said, although it is geared for our girls, we will allow boys to join as well.
Este programa que se llama Femineer es para las niñas, pero están dejando que los niños puedan ser admitidos. Este programa fue creado con la Universidad de Cal Poly con el propósito de que fueran más niñas a hacer como ingeniería, ciencias, con un poquito más de creatividad. Fairmont ya lo tiene este programa y se continúa en la high school, pero es algo nuevo para Sanger Academy y nuevamente puede ser para los niños, pero es más, fue diseñado para niñas para ayudar a que ellos estén más en las ciencias y en la tecnología. Y van a hacer el paseo a la Universidad de Cal Poly. Ese fue el que creó este programa. Cal Poly Pomona.
Yes, we also have drama, which that's a continued class. Mrs. Johnson, our art teacher, she teaches 3 different art classes: studio art, digital art, which is all art on their iPads. She's actually visited Sanger West now with me. We went to observe the digital arts class there, and we are purchasing some of the programs that the students use there so that when they leave us, they will already be familiar with the same programs they'll need in high school. And of course, she also does a photography class, which we just bought a bunch of brand new equipment for our students for next year too.
Van a continuar con drama, que ya se ofreció en el pasado. Hay 2 diferentes tipos de arte, arte de estudio, arte digital. Fueron a visitar a una de las escuelas high school para ver la clase de arte allí. Y ella, Mrs. Johnson, también ofrece la clase de fotografía. Apenitas acaban de comprar algunas nuevas cámaras para poder ofrecer esa clase.
And then, well, Mrs. Conrad's here too. I'm very interested in how we are improving and evolving our education pathway, because there is an education pathway at Sanger High. And we have had this in the past where students go into our elementary classrooms and work with elementary students as TAs in those classrooms. And we've had a lot of students continue that at Sanger High as well. And we have had former SAC Bears come back now and work at Sanger Academy. But we're going to also include a new twist into our education pathway. I won't make her speak. I don't want to put her on the spot, but Mrs. Conrad came up with a great idea that will also serve, I guess, the service spirit of our middle schoolers, and that we are going to have our middle school students who are going to peer tutor other middle school students. And of course, we're going to make sure that students are comfortable with this situation, because we don't want any students to feel, judged by getting helped by a peer. But we've already seen some of this year. Mrs. Conrad was noting about some of the great things our current students were doing already with their friends, working in groups, going over practice problems in a helpful way, not in a here's my paper, copy my work, right? But it really demonstrates that leadership role, and it really will unite the students in a whole different way than Mrs. Conrad can as their classroom teacher. Did you want to say anything else about that, Mrs. Conrad, or did I say? Sorry, we have to let Miss Elisa translate too.
I will do my best.
It's a lot.
La carrera de educación o el camino de educación lo han tenido en el pasado, lo van a hacer un poquito diferente ahora. Si el estudiante escoge eso, es cuando ellos piensan que quieren ser maestros. Ellos les están ayudando en las clases de los alumnos más chiquitos, van allí y es donde tienen esa experiencia de aprender de las maestras. Y ahora van a hacer algo diferente con Mrs. Conrad, van a hacer algunos cambios donde van a tener tutoría como de estudiantes de su mismo grado con su mismo grado, y no como una forma de decir, ten, copia mi trabajo, sino de poder ayudarse, de que aprendan de uno y otro y que se sientan cómodos, que puedan sentirse que pueden hacerle la pregunta a un estudiante de su misma edad que le pueda ayudar y le pueda dar esa tutoría. Es una forma de como unirse y una forma de liderazgo. I think I summarized it.
Yep, you did great. Mrs. Conrad, did you want to say anything else, or did we get it?
Nope, you are great. Thank you.
Oh, Mrs. Vallejos, I love that idea as well. Mrs. Vallejos said, could we have the education pathway be open to helping in the music classes as well? Yes. I love that. I know in the past we've had that informally, I believe, with some guitar students. I know when I had to sub maybe for guitar, I remember Mr. Vasquez telling me, hey, this advanced student, she could teach the class.
Yes.
Go in there and make sure that the students are behaving. But it's a really powerful, it's really powerful for our students to develop that leadership skill.
Absolutely. And as far as education, I did have Julian Gomez, who's a senior at the high school. He came in and helped in my polar band this year a couple of times.
Yeah.
So just thinking, they could be music teachers.
Yep.
Mrs. Vallejo hizo una sugerencia en el chat, que si los estudiantes que escogen esta carrera, este camino, que si pueden ayudar también en la clase de música. Y dijo Mrs. Lickey que sí, está muy de acuerdo con eso, porque hay unos estudiantes que pueden ayudar a los que están aprendiendo. Por ejemplo, ella fue la sustituta de guitarra una vez y le dijo, este estudiante te puede ayudar y dar la clase. Y Mrs. Vallejos dio un ejemplo de un estudiante que estaba en la high school y regresó a la escuela para ayudar a un grupo de banda que tenía. So, si alguno de sus hijos está interesado en ser maestro de música, esto puede ser una buena opción para ellos.
They can help the little kids too, elementary music.
Y les pueden ayudar en música a los niños chiquitos también.
Yes, these are the pathways, and I will send this. I'm missing some information down here, but I'll be sending this PDF out to our SAC family so you guys can look at this. I don't have it translated yet. It's a lot of words in there, so I will work on getting it translated as well. And yes, Mrs. Vallejos is pushing to get a music pathway at Sanger High. That is not a current option for Sanger High or Sanger West, a music pathway. But for those of us SAC parents that really want that, go ahead and talk to your board members, talk to whoever you can, and get a music pathway at the high school.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially because right now, because of some pathways, it doesn't allow our students who are 8th graders going into high school to take band or guitar because of the pathways. So please, if you can put out a word, we want music pathway.
Mrs. Vallejo les está haciendo una sugerencia, una petición, diciéndole que en la high school no tienen un camino o carrera de música. Y si pueden hablar con los de la mesa directiva para que los estudiantes que ustedes quieran que continúen puedan hacerlo, porque les limita las opciones cuando están en la high school.
And then the last one I quickly will talk about so we can get out hopefully at 6:30. Mrs. Kerkorian is going to be starting a pathway, and this is similar. There is one at the high school called the AP Capstone, which is for students who are taking the advanced placement courses, and they are for sure, they are targeted to apply to colleges. And although, colleges are great, we also want to make sure our students also know that there are other pathways besides directly into college, like vocational ed, things like that. But the one we are going to parallel, I guess, work in the pathway of the capstone, AP capstone class, is our class that we're going to call the Scholar Academy. Years ago, I taught AVID at this school, and those of you who are familiar with AVID, that is a program designed for students who are interested in going to college but may not know about all of the steps they need to follow. We hope to bring AVID back. We're in the process. That's quite a process to get that back at a school. But for now, we're doing the Scholar Academy, which Mrs. Kerkorian is going to be going over college readiness strategies. And she's also going to have students research careers in colleges that they are interested in. And hopefully we can get some field trips to those local and maybe, within the state colleges for students to visit.
Algo nuevo que se va a ofrecer es como la academia de, no sé cómo traducir, scholars. Es para, por ejemplo, en la high school hay una carrera que es para como clases avanzadas, que son como casi universitarias, y es el camino que es para los que están interesados en estar listos para la universidad, competir para la universidad. En el pasado, Mrs. Lickey daba una clase de AVID que era para los estudiantes que tenían la potencial, a lo mejor agarraban calificaciones de C, pero necesitaban tipos de estrategias para ayudarlos a cómo estudiar, cómo prepararse para poder competir con esas clases de alto rigor. Y dice que están tratando de regresar el programa de AVID, pero es un proceso largo y lo están tratando de traer para atrás. Pero de mientras, Ms. Kerkorian va a dar este camino, y es para los estudiantes que van a como investigar diferentes carreras de universidad. También hay carreras técnicas o vocacionales, eso es algo importante también, pero esto se va a enfocar en los que quieran ir a la universidad. Van a también, ojalá, tener paseos a colegios estatales o de California. Es algo que están interesados en empezar.
I saw a parent did say that they would love for the AVID class. I really tried my hardest to get it going for, honestly, we just found out about a month ago that the high school is bringing it back. That is the only reason SAC had to stop that about, I probably stopped that about 7 years ago, maybe even longer. The AVID program wouldn't let us continue anymore because our high school didn't offer the courses needed for our students to progress. But the high school's bringing it back. I wish they would have told us, because I would have jumped in on that as well, since we were an original AVID school. But I was told that we can't start it next year, but to keep the process going. And we're looking at starting our AVID program for the 2023-2024 school year.
Una mamá puso, sí, por favor, AVID. Y dijo Mrs. Lickey que quieren aplicar al final del próximo año escolar para el que sigue. No podían tenerlo antes porque si no se daba ese programa en la high school, no podían tenerlo en Sanger Academy. Ahora que la escuela high school lo trajo para atrás, ahora van a poder hacerlo.
Does
I super
anybody?
summarized it. Sorry.
Yeah, you did. It was great. Does anybody else? And I do want to just say one last thing about these electives. I've been trying to plan for these without knowing 100% what our staffing will look like for next year, because of certain teachers leaving and new teachers being hired. This is the baseline that I have so far. Things may be changing. I will alert parents and students, of course, as they change. It takes me quite some time over the summer to place 7th and 8th graders in their electives, but I would say by the first week of August, that's usually my goal. When you log into Power School, as a parent or as a student does, it will show the electives that they are in for the next school year for 7th and 8th graders.
So dice que este es el plan de las clases selectivas que se van a estar ofreciendo para los estudiantes que van a empezar el 7 y el 8º grado el próximo año escolar. Pero dice que no está 100% segura que se van a mantener porque hay cambios en maestros y algunas cosas pueden cambiar y va a alertar a los papás en cuanto ella sepa de a cualquier cambio que se haga. En el verano va a estar trabajando en tratar de poner a los estudiantes en las clases selectivos, en hacer todo lo posible por tener todo listo. Si ustedes van en Power School, que es el sistema donde como padres o como estudiantes, para la primera semana de agosto está tratando de tenerlo todo listo para que ustedes puedan ver qué clases selectivos tuvieron sus hijos.
Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. I know that was a lot of information. If you ever have any more questions, I've been pretty busy these last couple of days getting ready for end of year 8th grade ceremony and different things, but feel free to email me, call for the school, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I hope this was helpful. And yep.
Dice que muchas gracias por estar aquí ahora, sabe que es mucha información. Una mamá puso que está agradecida por este tipo de junta que está teniendo ahora. Dice que le pueden mandar un correo electrónico si tienen más preguntas, pueden llamar a la oficina. En estas últimas semanas ha estado ocupada con la celebración del 8º grado, pero está muy contenta que tomaron su tiempo para estar en esta junta.
Thank you, everybody.
Gracias a todos.
Thank you, Miss Elisa.
No, sorry. Les pido disculpas si no hice el mejor trabajo. Traté.
And I did record the meeting, so I'll be sending that out.
Y grabó la junta y lo va a estar mandando.